Good day, welcome to another edition of Inside Putnam Valley Schools. I'm Eric Gross, your host, along with Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Jeremy Luft. And Jeremy, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think your first year as superintendent would be as unusual as this one was?
No, I must say this is certainly not how I envisioned it going my first year. And in the beginning of the school year, our board goal, really our district-wide goal, was about accepting challenges and being able to grow from those opportunities. And again, certainly when we set that goal back in August, global pandemic was not the challenge we were speaking of. But it's here, and we're doing the best we can to make sure that students continue to learn throughout it.
You know, the world has been turned upside down, as of course, that's no news to anybody out there. Schools totally disrupted, but yet education is taking place.
Yeah, I mean, our teachers are working really hard. I understand the burden on parents. Parents are at home and they're trying to do their own job as well as help educate their children. But we were thrown into this, and I think teachers are doing everything they can. I think they're getting better at it as time goes on. And the important piece is that students are still learning.
The end of the year, June is here already. Moving up exercises for 4th and 8th graders, of course, high school graduation, paramount concern to so many families out there. What can you tell our viewers about? First of all, let's talk about the high school graduation.
Sure. I mean, it's my heart pours out for our high school seniors. I understand of all the events in which they're missing out on. Sort of those milestone events are just not the same as they've been in previous years. So we've actually had a Zoom call, myself and Dr. Cherry, with about half the graduating class joined us on Zoom, and we had a conversation about what our options were and to give them a forum to share what they wanted. So we have a bunch of exciting events. They're going to do a parade event. They're going to do an event that's being put on by the senior class advisors called Senior Palooza, and students will be scheduled into small groups, but there's all kinds of different activities and things for them to pick up, and so that's event. And then obviously for graduation, we shared our sort of two plans. We're still hopeful that we'll be able to hold a socially distanced ceremony on the field, but it's important to note that that's not currently allowed. So if it's allowed, by the time the graduation comes around, we would split our class into two groups. We would limit 2 tickets per graduating senior for them to have parents attend, and then everyone would be socially distanced appropriately around the field. But right now, we know that's not currently being authorized. So we have a backup plan, which is sort of a family graduation where a student will have a chance to walk across the stage to receive their diploma in full cap and gown, and parents will be there in order to take sort of the photo op and to take advantage of that. And then all of those photos would be put into a slideshow along with pre-recorded speeches, and then there would be sort of a virtual ceremony that everyone would get a chance to see their friends and to hear the speeches beforehand. So those are sort of our two plans, and we're just waiting to see what changes and what the guidelines are as we get closer.
Guidelines coming from both the state and the county, is that it?
Sure, yep. So we're in weekly communication with the county health department, but ultimately the decisions are being made sort of by the state and through that control room network that they have set up for each region. So we have to submit our plans to the control room, and they give it sort of their blessing if we're allowed to continue. But right now we know that our first option would not be approved. Other districts who submitted similar plans were denied, so we're just waiting and hoping that things change. So we're planning for both events simultaneously because we have to be able to pivot quickly between the two.
And the date?
So the dates for the actual graduations
Right.
would be June 18th and 19th, I believe.
Okay.
And for the smaller ceremonies, students would receive invitations for the small groups. We would do 3 hours each day, I think 15th, 16th, and 17th. But Dr.
Will be on the website.
Yep, and there was just shared, Dr. Cherry shared detailed information, I think today's going out. So.
What about our younger friends, the 4th and 8th graders?
Yep, so 4th and 8th grade, again, those milestone events will not look the same as they have in the past, but we're trying to make them special, and we're honoring our students. So both buildings are in the process of creating a virtual ceremony for their students. And the middle school, the students had an opportunity to participate themselves. They recorded themselves saying their names, so they sort of get to see themselves up on that video. And the elementary school is using pictures. But we do want to provide an opportunity for those students to sort of say goodbye to their teachers. So we're scheduling what I'm calling sort of a farewell drive-through. So the 4th and 8th grade students will have the opportunity to decorate their cars, and they'll have an opportunity to sort of parade through the campus, and we'll get as many teachers here as we can to be able to sort of recognize those students and say goodbye to them as they move on to the next building.
You talk about parading through the campus. Usually on this program, over the last many, many years, we had that actual filming of the high school seniors walking through the elementary school.
Yep.
That's such a wonderful ceremony. Not this year, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not able to do it this year. So
Next year.
I certainly hope so.
Budget time, June 9th. That's the date when all budgets in New York State school budgets will be voted upon. Very, very complex this year. Ballots only by mail, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, the nuts and bolts on the Putnam Valley budget. $51.9 million, a 0.44% budget-to-budget increase. But Jeremy, the thing that got me more than anything was the fact that where was the number here? In 2015-16 school year, school taxes for the average home in Putnam Valley were $9,500, almost $9,600. 2019-20, the school tax is $9,100. That's a decline of $500. How do you guys do that every year?
Well, I think it just speaks to sort of the fiscal responsibility of the district and doing whatever we can to make sure that we're maximizing our revenues and as appropriate, minimizing our expenses. And I know that work has been going on for many years, and we continue to do the same this year. I think maybe the toughest aspect is, along with the closure period, where we anticipate a greater amount of student needs when students do return to school. We're now trying to balance a greater student need with less resources. So as a district, we've already reduced our budget by $1.2 million, and that's through, or it's in response to money, state aid that we lost.
There's a possibility more might be lost.
Yeah, I mean, that $1.2 million really just takes into account a 5% reduction in state aid, and as anyone's heard, the governor has very publicly said that schools and hospitals and other entities could lose up to 20%. So if that were the case, the district could stand to lose another $1.8 million in aid, which would certainly be devastating to our staffing and our programs.
You know, what happens? Teachers get slashed, programs reduced, larger class size?
Yeah, I mean, I think when tough decisions like that need to be made, and we've obviously already made some of those decisions to cut the first $1.2 million, it always impacts what's going on in the classroom. And we look at everything, and we obviously, the last place we want to go is in the classroom and or to impact student programs. But the reality is such a large percentage of our budget goes to support staffing and programs. It's impossible to make up that kind of money without looking at those as well. So.
And of course, this year, as we said a moment ago, the voting is taking place totally differently. Postal cards, you get a postal card in the mail advising of the vote, then the ballot comes. You fill it out, yes, no, any other propositions?
Nope.
Just the basic budget and the one school board candidate.
Correct.
You check that off and mail that in. It has to be received by the district clerk no later than 5 o'clock on the 9th. Now we know how the mail is around. I'm not beating up on the post office in any way, but the mail can be a little slow. So our advice to the folks out there would be when they get that ballot, fill it out. Don't put it in the drawer and forget about it.
Yeah, I would certainly encourage anyone, as soon as the ballot arrives, to fill it out and put it right back in the mail. You're right, we don't have a date when I could say it must be in the mail by in order to get back here, because there is a bit of unknown on how long it takes to get back here. But the date that we're using is June 2nd. I'm encouraging anyone to get it into the mail by June 2nd. That gives it a week to go through the postal system to get back here and to be accounted for before 5 p.m. on the 9th. Unfortunately, any ballots that arrive on the 10th or the 11th or 12th, they don't count. That vote doesn't count. So I would encourage anyone, as soon as the ballot arrives, to follow the directions and to get it back in the mail so it can be counted.
When should residents expect those ballots?
So I believe the ballots are being mailed today, first class mail, so they should be there the next couple of days. I think the postcards with the directions are starting to arrive as well. And residents should also be on the lookout for our budget newsletter, which provides some of the financial details of what's included in the budget. So there's really 3 separate pieces of mail that every resident should be receiving, and I would encourage them to be on the lookout. So you have the postcard with information, the actual ballot that has to be filled out and returned, and the budget newsletter, which provides information.
And of course, anyone has any questions, contact you, contact the district clerk. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call.
Yeah, certainly. There's a ton of information on our website, and if anyone has any questions, they can always reach out to us.
And will you suggest also that the residents out there contact their federal officials as well? State senators, U.S. Senators Schumer and Gillibrand, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney. Let them know how important this federal stimulus money is to schools like Putnam Valley.
Yeah, certainly. I know Governor Cuomo has said it a lot. He's asking for money for the state to be able to reduce the cuts that are being made to education. And I remain hopeful that we have the opportunity to restore some of the things that we're already projecting cutting from our budget, but that's all going to be dependent upon whether the state receives federal aid and whether that federal aid is enough to offset the budget cuts or the state aid losses that we're already projecting. So I certainly would encourage anyone to do whatever they can to advocate for schools.
So it's been quiet around the administrative office the last couple of months, quiet around the buildings themselves. But yet things are happening in Putnam Valley. Anything to do with the construction project?
Yeah, so the construction project has continued. They put safety measures in place. They had to submit COVID plans for how they were going to socially distance and wear masks. And I'm there every day. I say that our construction workers are very responsible in following through with those safety protocols. And it's allowed our project to continue. So obviously a lot of the work would only be starting at the beginning of June. We were going to start to do parts of the middle school. So they're way ahead of schedule, certainly in both the middle school and the high school. And as the elementary school, we've started some work as well. So the construction project remains ahead of schedule and thankfully on budget. And we hope that it continues, and we hope to have students back here in the fall and to have some brand new spaces for them to enjoy.
Looking into your crystal ball, how are things going to look like in September?
Well, that's a great question, one that many people have. There's a lot of unknowns. We're planning a wide range of contingency plans based upon the guidance we receive from the state, but I don't think anybody knows what truly to expect. We're in the process of developing a task force which will study a lot of these ideas and to identify different things that we'll need to do as a district. And that work is, we're beginning to form that committee, and we're expecting to get some additional guidance from the state in June. But right now there's a lot of theoreticals, what ifs, how would this all work out, and that work will continue for the rest of this spring and throughout the summer. And we hope to be able to open schools, but we would only do so if we can do it safely and to keep students healthy. So I think everything's on the table. Whether it be opening of school and in-person instruction like it's always been, or whether it's a continuation of distance learning. And those decisions will be made throughout the summer and in concert with other schools in our region and obviously with state and local health departments.
We know you're on the phone constantly with your Zoom accounts, with your fellow superintendents.
Yeah.
It has to be so mind-boggling. I was going to say, pull your hair out. You have no hair left anyway. But these guys are pulling out their hair. How does a kindergarten student wear a mask all day? Social distancing, what does that mean to a first or a second grader? It's just going to be incredible.
Yeah, those are very real questions and very real concerns. Obviously, there's students a certain age where you just can't expect a student to have a mask on or really understand what socially distanced means. There's other sort of pressure points along the way of transportation, the number of buses or the number of routes you would need to do in order to socially distance on a bus. how you run specials or kids passing in hallways. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of questions and issues, and we're just trying to work through them sort of one at a time to get a sense of, if this is the direction, this is what we can do. Or if this is the guidance, this is the direction we can move. So it's mind-boggling when you start to really think about what school would look like in a socially distanced environment. But it's our job to come up with answers to those questions.
As you say, time will tell.
Let's hope so.
But the most important thing right now, again, to remind you folks out there, the budget vote this year is June 9th. Not at the polling place. You get the ballot in the mail, fill it out, and return it immediately to the school. Postage paid.
Postage paid. And I do want to emphasize that this is the 9th consecutive year in which the budget is below the allowable tax levy cap. So I know we said it's a 0.44
Right.
increase from budget to budget, but that our tax levy cap is also below the allowable limit from the state. I believe it's 1.42%. So,
Well, a decline of over $500 in the last couple of years, that says something.
doing our best.
Doing our best. Okay. Superintendent of Schools Jeremy Luft, we thank you, sir, for joining us for this edition of Inside Putnam Valley Schools. Once again, June 9th, get those ballots in no later than 5 p.m. You'll get the ballots in the mail in the next few days, fill them out, put them back in the mail, and send them to the school. For Superintendent Luft, I'm Eric Gross. We thank you again for joining us for this edition of Inside Putnam Valley Schools. Be safe. Have a great summer. Until next time, bye-bye now.